Listeners, NerdWallet wants you to let them do the work for you. Looking for auto insurance? The Nerds will match you with top providers in your area in just a few questions. So getting the right rate for you is as simple as going to nerdwallet.com. After all, letting NerdWallet do the work is more than smart. It's genius. Not all applicants will qualify for the lowest monthly payments. NerdWallet Insurance Services, Incorporated. California resident license number OK92033. Guys, I did it. I got the Hydro Jug Traveler. It is the mug that everyone's talking about because it's completely leak-proof, cup holder compatible. That's the piece that I really wanted. I wanted it to go in my cup holder. And it has a hygienic circular flip straw that's easy for sipping. The Hydro Jug Traveler comes in multiple colors and sizes, 40, 32, and 22 ounces. I have it in 3 colors, so you can find the perfect bottle that matches your style. Go to hydrojug.com and use the code RACH to save 10% at checkout. That's code RACH at thehydrojug.com for 10% off at checkout.
And I had a friend who got really sick with HIV and then AIDS. Again, it was late 90s. And when he died, I remember where I was in San Francisco on a trip with my mom. And I remember at that moment, I thought, I should do something about this thing I've always been thinking about. Because if I don't, life is short. I'll never know. I'll always wonder.
Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I have a favor, which sounds kind of harsh if we just met, but I'm assuming that most of you have been a part of this community for a hot minute. And so I gotta ask, are you subscribed to the podcast? Subscribing to the podcast you listen to regularly is one of the best things that you can do for hosts like me. It helps to support the show and the staff that works on it. It ensures that you never miss an episode when we drop a new one. And here's the cool thing about subscribing. If you do it and then you hate this show, just unsubscribe. It's one click away. In the meantime, if you're listening, we would so appreciate it if you would just tap that button and make it official. I think being an entrepreneur is a lot like being a professional athlete. I think it's about putting in a lot of reps. It's about learning from your mistakes. And more than anything, I think the key to success is the tenacity to keep going. So today I thought it would be cool if our Mastermind episode was a collection of entrepreneurs who really represent that kind of philosophy and mindset. What if you could take a little from the endurance mindset of Jesse Itzler and the peak performance strategies of Mylett? The product and brand innovation from the genius of Marcia Kilgore and the bold, creative lifestyle vision of Liz Lambert. And what if you can combine all of those into a guide for designing a bold, intentional, wildly fulfilling life? This episode draws on insights from interviews with each of them. And we hope that we're curating a virtual roundtable where their messages really impact your life. Think of this like your own dream team masterclass. I hope you dig this episode.
I was a personal trainer. My skin got very bad. I learned how to give facials. Then I started giving facials to other people who wanted to pay me to do it. So I opened a really small little facial place that was called Let's Face It. And I had that for 2 years and then moved into a bigger place and hired a couple of girls. And we all did my technique of facials. And then I opened a spa called Bliss. And 3 years into Bliss, LVMH came and bought a majority part of Bliss. And then I stayed for another 5 years with Bliss and had kind of done everything that I knew how to do there. So I decided to take a break. But I took a break for about 6 months and then thought I really missed the beauty industry. And I started another business called Soap and Glory. And then I started another business in footwear called FitFlop. Because I had this idea about a flip-flop that everybody could afford. I'm all about the affordable, right?
Yes.
Because I wanted something that would really help people with their posture and alignment, and that would kind of make the most out of walking. So, I used to be a personal trainer, so that still comes along. I always want to kind of be healthy and, aligned and make people have a lot of energy. And I thought, well, if we do it as a flip-flop, everyone can afford it because flip-flops should be inexpensive. Now, of course, we ended up designing this technology that isn't that easy because there are 3 different densities of EVA inside the midsole, and it's kind of a little more expensive than a normal flip-flop to make, but still quite affordable. And so then, let's see, I had Soap and Glory, flip-flop, ended up selling Soap and Glory to Alliance Boots Walgreens, who's all like one big, in 2000, and I'm going to say 14. I like to build the community because I like to make people happy. So I try to build products that really delight people because I feel like life can be so hard. And I like to also, Bliss was really a spa, but to make people feel good because I noticed that so many of my customers were, having problems with their skin. When I solved that, they had problems with their stress. So I wanted to create a place where they could go, and it wasn't judgmental and it wasn't too fancy, but it was a great service and they felt loved.
Yeah.
And they left just feeling elevated. And so people would literally book their appointments for 2 years in advance so that they got their slot.
Yeah.
Right? So they had Tuesday night at 6:30 and they were not letting it go if it was once a month. And they would try and swap with somebody else if they couldn't make it for some work reason or whatever. I mean, some people would even book every 2 weeks just so they'd have it, and then they would cancel, and we could get somebody in from the waiting list. But it was we really delivered on that, promise of relieving people of their stress. It was supposed to be a holiday, so you could, not leave town, but you'd get away.
Yeah.
And so I guess every business I do is to try and make people's life better. And so, knowing that women love beauty products and knowing that they're just so expensive now and that even I don't want to buy them at retail, Beauty Pie was kind of the culmination of many years of trying to build communities, trying to make people happy, trying to give them something better. So it's an evolution of ideas. Because I love doing the product. I mean, without an excellent product, you don't have a business.
Yes.
Anybody can do average.
You're so right.
Shoes have to fit.
Yep.
They've got to be comfortable. They have to be the ones that when you're packing your bag to go somewhere, you always put them in.
Yeah, that's so real.
And if you think about that and you think about also your moisturizers, your makeup, your whatever, you take the stuff that you can't live without. So that's kind of how I edit down. It's like, if I am testing this product and I have to give it back to the girls in the NPD department, do I feel distraught? And if I do, I know it's good enough.
Yeah, that's so real.
Yeah, but everything else, if it's average,
Yeah.
I bother.
Yeah.
It's my best idea yet, but it is the one where I actually had oh my God, I'm terrified to do this. And then, oh my God, I'd be terrified if I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So it was one of those, when I came up with the idea for Beauty Pie, and having been in the industry for 30 years already, which is probably what brought me to the point where I would be able to do this because I've got so many contacts, so much experience. I know how it all works.
Yeah.
I probably couldn't do it before. But it was a really radical, disruptive idea that I had to kind of lean into because at first, my first reaction to having the idea to do a buyer's club for luxury beauty where it was totally transparent and we kind of unveiled all the smoke and mirrors of the industry was, oh my God, everyone's going to hate me.
Yeah.
And then I thought, but wait, millions of women are going to
love you.
And then I thought, well, you know what? What's really best for, the majority of the people who will experience this? Yes, there'll be some industry kickback. Some people will hate me for, lifting the veil. But there are so many people who are going to benefit from being able to buy a higher quality product for like a fraction. I'm not even talking a fraction, but a tenth of the price that they would normally pay at retail. So it's kind of my dream job now, having been in the industry for so long, to launch something that is just all about what I want to do and nothing about what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
be a person before it all starts.
Yes,
right?
it's so
yeah,
smart.
and just see kind of what's going on, and you got to live it, and then you evolve and you learn. I think if you're not a trained, then again, I don't know if you can really. I think mistakes are great, right? Because you feel them, and the pain of making a mistake. Actually, I think it physically changes your. It's either your DNA or your vibe or whatever it is, and you learn. Now, it's different. A lot of people say, will you mentor me, right? And I just don't think that you learn. I've had so many people ask me, and I've tried, but they don't listen to the advice because it's free.
Yes.
But making a mistake is not free. So I actually think that making mistakes is so valuable.
Yes.
Because if it's painful enough, you don't make it again.
Yes.
And you never forget. And that is the best way to learn, because people can give you advice, but there will always be your ego in there going, well, I don't know, and it can be the most talented people. I mean, I listen to people's advice because I've made mistakes not listening to them, and I know how painful it is. So now if people say, you should do X, Y, or Z, I listen to as many people who will offer me advice and then kind of weigh it and then ask a lot of questions. But it takes a while to get to the point where you've made so many painful mistakes that you know that you should be listening.
Yes.
And I'm there now, but
Yes.
I'm 51, right? Like, it took a while, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I hope I won't make them again, but even if I do, then I won't make them the next time.
Yes.
It's just a part of your evolution.
Yes.
Yeah. I think once you understand what's necessary for a business to be successful, then you can do that in any category. As long as, if you're building footwear, you need people who know how to make footwear fit. You need to know where the supply chain, you get those experts to help you. But it's more about understanding, I think, what has to be true for a business to be successful and have repeat customers.
Yes.
Because no business is successful if people just buy something once. And that then comes down to, again, that product being great. So it's having the elements that what has to be true about this. I guess one of them is that you have to have a real USP, right? So what? What is cool about this? What's different about it? It's got to be different enough that there aren't so many different people competing already against you in your category that, nobody cares.
Absolutely.
And that's number one, right?
Yes.
Because if you come out and you say, well, I'm going to start a sneaker brand, okay. So
Why do we care?
yeah,
Yes.
like
What is
there's a
your
lot of
unique
sneakers
selling?
out there,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Or jeans. I mean, there's a lot of jeans brands, but they struggle. They'll be really trendy. Then another one is trendy. What about yours is going to be different? And if you have a USP, then that's going to help you tremendously. Then, of course, it's about executing on that quality. And then I think being able to communicate all of that.
Yes.
That's communication is everything. I
Yes.
mean, the world breaks down, relationships break down, companies break down because people don't communicate or they don't know how to communicate. But almost any time you have an issue with a person or a business or whatever that problem is, if you break it down, it comes down to there's some breakdown in communication.
Yeah.
And I always, I've made, talking about making mistakes where I prejudged a situation and thought something was happening when it wasn't. And I've learned from that too, that actually what I should do is just go clearly communicate and ask, hey, I'm feeling like this is like this. Could you explain from your perspective how you see it, right? Is this true?
Absolutely.
Or am I just thinking this?
Yes.
Right? And if I would have done that in those situations, it would have been better. I wouldn't have reacted the way I reacted. And sometimes, it was painful. And then I felt really ashamed of how I had prejudged a situation. And just knowing that feeling, of course, I wouldn't do it again. So again, it goes back to the mistakes.
Yes.
But yeah, communication, great product, a USP. And then you got to love it. You got to be passionate about whatever it is you choose. I mean, you can have many different interests and passions. Proving something, like you take a category and you make it better, that's very motivating, right? Because you want to evolve, you want to do it better. I mean, nobody wants to go in and do it less good than the leading people. And just knowing that whatever you're doing is improving somebody's life, that's really motivating. You got to be motivated every day. So there are certain things I just couldn't go and sell.
Yes.
But I could sell an incredible ergonomic yoga office chair. I could sell that. And I have nothing to do with office chairs, but I know I would like an office chair where I can put one leg up and kind of stretch while I type.
Yes.
I could sell the heck out of that,
Yes.
right? And I was a personal trainer, so I know all about the body and the alignment. And I've got shoes that align you when you walk, so that your ground reaction force goes through your knees and your hips, so that you don't have that knee and hip and lower back torque. I mean, it's interesting. It's better. It makes it easy, especially on the hard days, because
Yes.
there's always a bad day.
Yes.
Where you just think, oh God, right? And then you have to just think when you have one of those.
I think you guys know this, but in case you don't, my happy place is on the beach. Actually, that's not enough. My happy place is on the beach with an iced coffee in my hand. What a vibe. There are a lot of beaches out there, but there's only one people call the beach. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is made up of 14 coastal communities and 60 miles of sunny beaches. Together, they create a place that makes you feel like you belong. Shine and dine in a foodie haven with oceanfront patios, fresh seafood, low country classics, and southern favorites. Plus, my favorite, you can listen to live music any day of the year, outside at laid-back beach bars, at world-renowned theaters, or right on the boardwalk. You belong at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Plan your trip to the beach at visitmyrtlebeach.com. If you've ever learned about nutrition in a way that you didn't know before, and suddenly you're way more thoughtful about what your food is made with, what's on the back of the label, it can be really confusing when you're first starting out to understand what means what you should buy for your family, and what you should leave at the store. Well, now you can spend less time at the grocery store thanks to Thrive Market, your new go-to online grocery store for getting all of your healthy essentials delivered. With over 1,000 harmful ingredients banned from their store, Thrive Market's team of product researchers do the hard work so you don't have to spend all of your time trying to figure out what is in the food you are ordering. Finding better options for your whole family is super easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. You can scan a product you already have, and it instantly recommends healthier items. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/rach for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/rach. thrivemarket.com/rach.
I had a very unconventional journey as an entrepreneur. I started out in the music business as a rapper. I know that sounds crazy. From there, pivoted into, I did jingles for corporations and sports teams. I managed Run DMC. I had a private jet company that we sold to Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway's NetJets. I had a coconut water company we sold to called Zico, that we sold to Coca-Cola. I've been an author. I've been a speaker. I've had a lot of egg on my face. I had a fitness company called 29 or 29 that you were a part of, where we climbed these mountains. But the common theme through all this stuff is, which is crazy, Rachel, I had no prior experience in anything, in music, in beverage, in entertainment, nothing. And that, for a lot of people, that's a big deterrent and can be really scary. But for me, it was a great advantage, because it guaranteed that everything I did would be different than my competition, and I would get different results, and I would do it my own way without being taught. And that was the common thread throughout all these things. So once I did one thing like music, my dad owned the plumbing supply house. I had no lawyer. I had no entrant, I had no connections, nothing. But it built up this resilience and this grit around, getting my foot in the door and figuring it out.
And you would just sort of lean into something you were interested in, and then you'd figure it out once you were there. How did you, just starting with music, how did you even navigate that world?
Yeah, well, music was different because I love music. I grew up in New York in the 80s when hip hop was coming on the scene. I was surrounded by it. I was really into it. When all my friends in college were writing resumes, they're like, why aren't you writing a resume? I'm like, if I'm getting a record deal, I don't need a resume to get a record deal. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I did. And I was making, a demo on my answering machine That's how I made my original demo, was making an instrumental, the music portion of a CD, while that played, leaving a rap on my answering machine. I
Stop.
sent that to record companies. Yeah. But that's what I wanted to do. And I was like fully committed. And by the way, 17 record companies passed on me until I finally got a small independent label to give me a chance. But and several partners quit along the way because they couldn't handle the rejection. But at 19, 20 years old, when I was going through that journey, getting the reward at the end of getting a deal, like having gone through that rejection and then realize like, whoa, the only reason why I got a deal and so many people that have been next to me along this journey didn't is because I stuck with it. I never worry about the how. Like when I started Marquis Jet, I was a kiddie pool attendant 4 years before we started this airplane company that did $5 billion in sales. And if they would have said to me, like, you're going to need FAA approval and Department of Transportation approval and raise money and build a sales force and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I was a kiddie pool attendant. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what was the first thing you said I needed? FAA approval? Well, there's got to be a lawyer that does that. Let me find that guy. And once we got that, what was the second thing I needed? Department of Transportation. There's got to be a lawyer that does that. I never worried about the how I was going to get it done in anything.
Yeah.
Even when I signed up for ultra races, which I do, and endurance races, it's never like how. It's like, let me sign up, let me commit to this, and then figure out how. Because if you worry about how, it's going to be so overwhelming and scary. It's going to talk you out of trying.
Absolutely.
So to me, yeah, I mean, you did the same thing. You signed up for our race 29 or 29, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to figure out when I get to the friggin' mountain.
Exactly right.
Yeah. At the time, really the only way to fly on a private plane was to buy your own. Like, who is $50 million to buy their own plane?
Right.
Or to charter one. And there were a lot of questions around charter, like who's flying the plane? You know, there were just a lot of questions around that. So we came up with this category really of a jet card. And so people, and that, imagine, you know, for any entrepreneur out there, anybody that has an idea, you know, as entrepreneurs, really, we can do two things. We can either invent something new that doesn't exist or make something better. That's what we do. And usually when you come up with a new idea, or in this case, a new category, you're going to get met, anybody out there, with a lot of resistance. You don't have enough experience. If this is such a good idea, why haven't the big guys done it? You know, and you're going to get that. And, you know, we were faced with a lot of that. So imagine going into my parents' house. And, you know, I've had, by the way, at this stage in my life also, I had no resume. I got dropped as a rapper. I sold meat and chicken door to door. I stunk at it. I had like 8 things that failed. I was a kiddie pool attendant. I wasn't even a lifeguard. I worked at the kiddie pool because I wasn't even certified.
Oh man.
So I can't even swim. And I go to my parents and they're like, so what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm starting a private jet company. They're like, my dad was like, what are you talking? So I always believed in the end of my story, which is so important as anybody. If you're single, you have to believe he or she's out there. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to believe. I always knew I was onto something. I just didn't know what that would be. So I was always looking for clues. I would go into bookstores and I look at the packaging of the book covers. I go into Whole Foods and I look at what's hot in the beverage section. I was just always aware, thinking like, what will be my idea? And because I was in that space already, I was a guest on a private plane, like just on a fluke. And when I walked onto the plane, my partner and I were like, people travel like this? This is nuts. Like, we need to do this. I want to do this. And that led to the research around how could we do it, and this idea of a 25-hour jet card where you could get all the benefits of owning your own plane without having to buy a plane. And that's sort of how it started.
So cool.
So my default mechanism was 2 things: storytelling and humor. I would be able to navigate meetings. I would beg, Rachel, when I went into big meetings, I would beg that they didn't call on me because I didn't know what the hell anyone was talking about when they were talking about like the budgets and stuff. And if they did, I would deflect it with like, let me tell you guys what happened to me this weekend, into a story about nothing, make them laugh and be like, okay, go to the next question, like and I would get out of it. You know, I was like, networking was one of those things that I had to get really good at because it didn't require high intelligence, high scores, or a degree in business. I had none of that. I love people. So it came really naturally to me, and all kinds of people, janitor to CEO.
Yeah.
And I built my network when I had no money. In my 20s, intuitively, I sent 10 thank you notes a day. So I sent 3,000 letters, handwritten letters in my early 20s. That was my marketing and networking plan. Everybody that I came across that impacted me. So if I would send you a thank you note after this, I would send anyone that I had a meeting with would get a thank you note. If I had a dinner and there were 6 people at the dinner, I would send everyone a note. Great to meet you. Let's stay, that was what I did. And I invited people to everything. If I was going to a local polar plunge that the fire department had in New York City, Coney Island, where New Year's Eve, like you could sign up for a team of 20, I would sign up 20 people and invite them. And even if they said no, people loved getting an invitation. They loved that I thought about them. So I was super inclusive, and I still am.
Yeah.
So I made it a point for things that didn't cost money to be inclusive with people. And everything that I did in my networking, and this is still today, this is still true. I could give a master class in this. It was one way. I never asked for anything in return, ever. Like everything was just like, if I knew you were into roller skating, I'd send you a YouTube video. Rach, I know you're into roller skating. Check out this video on how to master roller skating in 10 minutes or less. That doesn't cost me anything, but you appreciate it because I thought about you.
Right.
So I did that. I would show up at places that didn't cost money that were hot spots. So for example, I lived on my friend's couch. I lived on 18 couches between 19 and 22.
Wow.
But when I lived in LA on couch number 5, my friend John Cornick's place in Burbank, we went to lunch at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
That was what I've heard you talk
But I'm
about.
sitting
Yes.
at can I tell the story?
Yes.
No.
No, I want the audience.
We go to
hear.
lunch. I'm sleeping on this guy's couch. I'm living out of my suitcase. And I'm looking around. I'm like, that's Russell Simmons. That's the guy that runs Miramax. That's the head of Warner Brothers TV. They're all at the Beverly Hills at the Polo Lounge for lunch. And I'm like, you don't have to be a guest at the hotel for $4,000 a night to come to lunch at the Polo Club? He's like, no, you got to order a salad. So that became my office. I went there every day, literally. And I would have a salad and like a glass of water for like 8 hours.
Water.
And I would sit there for like 4 hours, but I started getting facial association with everybody. I started watching the mannerisms of the experts. How did they tip? Did they stand up to greet people? Like I was a 21-year-old kid. I was a sponge. So I'm watching this environment of the wealthiest movers and shakers. Then I go back and I sleep on my friend's couch with 5 other guys in the house, but I'm picking up these habits. But more importantly, I'm in the bathroom with the guy. Hey, can I get you this? Can I open the door? And I'm being noticed. Years later, there's facial recognition as my star starts to shine brighter. I'm bumping into the same guys at the restaurants. I'm bumping into the same guys at the hot spots. So I put myself, part of the networking was being in the environment. Part of it was really casting a wide net through things that didn't cost any money. And part of it was being really inclusive to the people already in my network.
Look, everyone knows that toilet paper is not created equal. Not all rolls are the same. Some are too soft. Some, can we say, sort of crumble, if you know what I'm saying. Then other toilet paper is so strong that it can actually hurt. And let's not even talk about the toilet paper that is so thin, it doesn't get the job done. Angel Soft is soft and strong and always affordable. Come on, life is too short. There's too much going on. I don't want to have to overthink this. So pick up a pack of Angel Soft in the toilet paper aisle of your nearest retailer. That's Angel Soft, soft and strong. Simple. Mother's Day's coming up, and that means a little Mother's Day gift. I love all sorts of things, but one of my favorites is jewelry, and Pandora is perfect for just that. So Pandora has all sorts of iconic jewelry, from their charms to necklaces, rings, earrings, and so many other items. There's a million ways that you can thank your mom or maybe buy yourself a little something this Mother's Day. Also, Pandora has in-store engraving. So wouldn't it be so fun to go to brunch and then go to Pandora for custom engraving? Like literally you could have something written in your handwriting and get it engraved on the jewelry. You can find out about all the fabulous things they have by visiting Pandora in-store or online at pandora.net.
Like most dreams, they don't show up looking like what you think they would. You know, most of the great things in our life didn't show up kind of exactly the way we thought they would look or be, yet they're blessings, right? And that's sort of true for my business life too. My real business journey started right when baseball ended. College baseball ended. I had an injury, ended my career. And the short version was I was really down. I was back at home living at my parents' house. And same bed I grew up in, same teddy bear, same Farrah Fawcett poster on the wall. That dates me, but it's true. And I was unemployed for about a year. My dad came home. My dad had just got sober from an AA meeting, came home and said, "Hey, I got you a job tomorrow morning. You need to show up at McKinley Home for Boys in San Dimas." I'm like, "What in the world is that?" He goes, "I have no idea, but you're going because I'm tired of paying all your bills." And I end up showing up there the next morning. I said, "Hey, I'm here for the job. I'm Eddie Mylett." They go, "What job?" I have no idea. We go back and forth. I'm about to leave. They're like, "Come back when you know the job or at least who's hiring you." And I go, "You know what? The guy's name is Tim." My dad said his name is Tim. They go, "There's a lot of Tims here." And I go, "Well, I think he's an alcoholic because he was at an AA meeting with my dad last night." And they go, "Oh, drunk Tim, cottage 8. And little did I know, that was my number in baseball, ironically, too, was number 8. But little did I know in about 5 minutes from that sentence to when I walked through that door, my whole existence on earth would change. And my entrance into business wasn't business. It was children. And I walked through the door, and McKinley's an orphanage. So the boys there, it's all boys. It's a campus group home. They're all wards of the court. When I say orphanage, their parents are either dead, incarcerated, or had been molesting them. And my boys were all 8 to 10-year-old boys. And I have this opinion that if everything in your life happens for you, not to you, you and I both say that regularly, but it's true. If you could figure that out in current time, you'd be a lot happier, though, than having to wait for hindsight. And I walk through this door, and they're getting ready for school. There's these 10 precious boys there, and they all stop right when I walk in and stare at me. And you have these eyes too, Rachel. It's interesting. These little boys have the same eyes as me. Anybody who grew up with any dysfunction when they were a child, any type whatsoever, our eyes are just different.
Yeah.
We just want to be loved and cared for and believed in. And that's what these boys had. And I connected with them instantly. I didn't have the same kind of dysfunction, but I knew what it was like to grow up with anxiety and stress in your house with my dad's drinking. And I fell in love with it. These boys, I'd be there when they got home from school, ready for school, Halloween, Christmas Day. I'd open their presents with them, their birthdays. And I fell in love. All these boys wanted was someone to love them, believe in them, care about them, and teach them how to live better. And from that moment till today, that's what I've been doing with my life. That's all I've ever done. I do it with adults now. And that, while I worked there, Rachel, I fell in love with this. Like, oh, I like helping people. Because before that, everything was about me and baseball and me becoming somebody and getting rich and famous. And I went, whoa, I like this, like helping people thing. And I got recruited into a financial company when I worked there. And I was part-time. And I went into business really weird. I didn't go in like a kind of a normal young person with like a big dream or material goals or a huge amount of even goals. I went in to like serve people, like help people. And I ended up making $6 an hour at McKinley when I was making over $100,000 a year in my part-time business because I didn't want to leave my boys.
Yeah.
And then eventually it just dawned on me I could go help the parents of children and make a difference that way. And so I transitioned into the financial business in my mid-20s out of that group home. And here we are today. It's led to other businesses, from coaching people to startup businesses and angel investing and all these other things that I now do. But it started at McKinley Home for Boys, and then that went into the financial business. You know what I've done a better job of? I've done a better job of giving myself a little credit, which is hard for me to say the sentence right now to you. That's why I hesitated.
Yeah.
But I give myself a little credit. And for me, because I'm a person of faith, I'm like, I think this probably pleased God.
Yeah.
And I really, really take time now to be present. And so enjoyment for me, I'm always happier when I am where I am. Meaning I'm in the moment. We just did a conference and I spoke well. Or we just had a conference call like this. The more present I am, the happier I am. And the less present, the more I project into the future. Or when I'm with my children, I'm thinking about work. Or when I'm at work, I feel guilty because I'm not with my children. Those are the moments where I feel the least happy. And so I've learned that just being present in the moment and being grateful for the moment gives me tons of happiness in the moment. It's simple as that. But with social media and all of us often, I think even particularly for women, it's more this way, but it's for men as well. We just don't ever feel like we're enough. We just, I'm not enough. I'm not a good enough mother, or I don't look like I should look, or I'm not making the money I should, or I'm making the money I should, and I don't see my children like so-and-so does. And that would lead me to maybe one other one I put out today on comparison, which is comparison. And I know you talk about this too, is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It's the thief. But there's an insidious comparison. It's easy. The easy teaching is don't compare yourself to another woman or man. Don't compare your finances to someone else. That's easy. The comparison that's insidious is the comparison we actually do with ourselves. We compare our current relationship to a previous one. Or we compare the current status of our relationship to another time in it. Like, why isn't it like it was in week number 5? Because it's not week number 5. and the more you compare it to then, the more you drowning yourself with unhappiness. Or comparing your 50-year-old body with your 17-year-old body.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to go, I shouldn't compare with other people. Well, what about with yourself? That's the one that hurts the most, is comparing, a talk you give, Rachel, to the best one you've ever given. And that creates unhappiness. Maybe the one you did was just wonderful as it was.
Yeah,
And maybe,
that's good.
Yeah, and so there's a whole bunch, and I'll give one more just as a gift, just to get a gift. But you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
I'm a big believer. And that's why I told you to upgrade all the time who you're hanging around. I have one called Unlocking Your Success Code, where I talk a lot about your identity. Your identity is the beliefs, concepts, values, things you believe to be most true about you. And that identity in your life, if we're being real here, is like a thermostat. I'm looking at one right now. It's sitting on the wall. It's set at 74 degrees in the room I'm in right now. That's the temperature for your entire life, your identity. And you're never long-term going to exceed that thermostat setting for who you believe you are and what you're worth. And so what happens in life is we start to get our results going, and they get ahead of who we really believe our identity is. And we do get anxious. We get scared. We get uncomfortable. And then what we do, unconsciously, we sabotage it to cool our life right back down to believe what we think we're worth. And it happens over and over. It's the thermostat setting on our lives. Everyone listening to this has had this happen. You've been in a relationship. It's going great. And then all of a sudden it's not. You've cooled it back down. Or your finances are getting going, and then they're back to where they were. Or your body, and it's back to where it was. Because if you don't change that thermostat setting, if you don't work on you, your identity, you can do all the external things right in your life. You will cool that sucker back down to your temperature that you believe you're worth. Just like this room. If I open the door and a bunch of cold air blows in here, 40 degrees of air, you know what happens? The heater kicks on and the room regulates to 74. It's not the external conditions that dictate the caliber of our life. It's that dadgum thermostat setting. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And if we can change that, we change our whole existence on earth. And you have multiple settings. You have a faith thermostat, a financial one, a physical one, a relationship one. And so the way we adjust it is we powerfully associate with people who live at higher temperatures in those areas.
I went to law school at UT, and then after law school, I started at the DA's office in Manhattan. So I was a prosecutor for a while. And then I moved back here, and I took a job. You can only stay in New York so long as a Texan, right? And I moved back here and started work for the Attorney General's office, so I was a trial lawyer. And I kept thinking, this isn't exactly what I want to do. I was traveling a lot all over Texas, living in Motel 6s, trying cases, and I didn't know exactly what it was, but I was so happy to be back in Austin. It was the late 90s, and I would go to the Continental Club a lot. If you guys from Austin know that on South Congress, there's a live music venue that's legendary, and I spent a lot of time there on a bar stool, looking out the window that was right behind me at a little seafoam green motel. And back then, there was nothing on South Congress. There was a couple of businesses open, no cars on the street, it was crickets. But there was this little seafoam green motel that looked empty, pretty much. I kept wondering about it, and I kept thinking that would be so cool to run a motel. Basically, I thought about it a lot. I never did anything about it. And I had a friend who got really sick with HIV and then AIDS. Again, it was late 90s. And when he died, I remember where I was in San Francisco on a trip with my mom. And I remember at that moment, I thought, I should do something about this thing I've always been thinking about. Because if I don't, life is short. I'll never know. I'll always wonder. And I went and kind of looked around a little bit, and it looked like nobody was there. What I didn't know at the time was that there were people there. They just didn't have cars or luggage or come out during the day a lot, And it was $30 a night. And I basically knocked on the door, and it was a Taiwanese couple that had the motel, and they were going to put it in the Chinese newspaper the next week. Wow. And I was like, don't do that. They had a daughter who was in medical school in Houston, and they were going to move to Houston. I got a realtor, and I talked to my mom into it. I still can't believe I talked my mom into co-signing a note with me. And it was $500,000, and I didn't know what I was going to do for money, but a lot of times I've done things that I did them because I didn't know. Mm-hmm. If I'd known how hard it was, I might not have done it, but that was one of them. Yeah. So I thought I could just go to the bank and get a loan, and I thought, I'm smart, this will be fine. And banks thought it was a terrible idea to open a motel on South Congress because it was basically like hookers and junkies, and nobody was really going to want to go. I thought maybe I could redo this 24-room hotel room by room, and that I could charge $75 a night, and that people that were coming to Austin or lived in the neighborhood might want to stay there. It turned out to be a terrible idea, by the way, because to raise the rent to $75, what didn't occur to me at the time is that people that are paying those rates are looking for a Motel 6, right, on the highway. It's like mom and pop in a van, or whoever it is, people traveling along, and they're going to see billboards, or they're going to be part of a rewards program. They're not going to get off the highway and travel into downtown Austin to sleep next to the crack dealer in the other room, right?
Oh my gosh.
It was a bad plan.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't know where I was going to get the marketing dollars to convince them of that.
Right.
Yeah, and none of which I had. So it took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I ended up quitting my job at the HE's office and started working the front desk. And that way I could devote myself more to trying to write a business plan. Banks saw it as a high-risk proposition, which they were right. Turns out banks are risk-averse.
Yeah.
And I had no business background whatsoever. I remember I went through college at UT I did everything to avoid a math class. I went and took Greek and Latin. There was a little loophole where you didn't have to take math. And so I found it. And then I found myself back at going to business school to audit classes so I could try to figure out how to write a business plan and understand numbers. But I am curious, and and I also, meaning is important in what I do every day to me. And it's infinitely more interesting I'm always asking questions, and so I'm bound to find out sooner or later.
Right.
I would really hate a life in which work was just work, and then you came home and you did this other thing. I understand for some people that makes perfect sense. And a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't just, want to work and just be done with it and then so it's no judgment there. Just for me, because I work a lot and I travel a lot, and it's really important to me to find meaning in that work and with the people that I'm working with and the experience that we deliver.
Right.
You can learn the hotel business, but we do need people that actually understand a few things about rooms. But to me, it was just interesting. It was like I wanted the best places I've stayed and the best experiences I've had in hotels were totally immersive ones. And so that was sort of natural, like thinking about what color is, what's the soundtrack, what's the smell, what's it's really about storytelling. There's that part of it. And then the other part is what makes a place continue to be relevant or interesting. And to me, that's when you engage with the community and the people around you and the artists and the folks in the neighborhood. And, when I was growing up in West Texas, the hotel downtown was where my granddad, who was a rancher, would do business or get his shoes shined or go meet with somebody, smoke a cigar and read the paper. He was curious about people. I remember going as a little girl with him to sit there, and you could smell the leather couches and the cigar smoke. And it was, people used hotels as meeting places and as parts of communities. And so my vision of that is a little different than a hotel in downtown Odessa with cigar smoke and a barbershop, but it's the same idea, really.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the first P&Ls. You look at a profit and loss statement to understand how things are going in a business, and I had no idea what one was, really. I mean, I kind of knew, but understanding that I had to understand. Again, my timing was good with the San Jose on South Congress. Things were starting to move. Austin was growing. And so, at first, we got a couple of comment cards like, can I curse?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Like we put comment cards in the rooms, and one of the first ones was, "This is the most fucking expensive garage I've ever stayed in." Because
I wish you had framed that.
I think I still have it.
Okay.
Because we had concrete floors, right? And so there weren't many hotels. There wasn't a thing,
Right.
So, I think that when it was, it was definitely a struggle in the beginning. There were actually two investors that I got in, back and forth with, and I had to really, that's a longer story. I think when people started approaching me and asking me to do other projects is when I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing, or at least, even though I don't, I'm curious enough to figure it out, and I can figure it out. I mean, I've always thought I can figure this out.
The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Hey, this is Jeff Lewis from Radio Andy, live and uncensored. Catch me talking with my friends about my latest obsessions, relationship issues, and bodily ailments. With that kind of drama that seems to follow me, you never know what's going to happen.
You can listen to Jeff Lewis live at home or anywhere you are. Download the SiriusXM app for over 425 channels of ad-free music, sports, entertainment, and more. Subscribe now and get 3 months free. Offer details apply.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 boat insurer. We've all made mistakes on the water, but there's one mistake you shouldn't make: being uninsured. With Progressive Boat Insurance, you can choose coverage for most mistakes you or other boaters could make, helping you float carefree all season long. Quote today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. #1 rating based on boat market share data from ratefilings.com.